Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Adobe Live. Welcome. Happy Friday. My name is Terry White, Worldwide Photography Evangelist here at Adobe. It's my pleasure to be streaming to you live once again on my favorite day of the week, Masterclass Friday. Masterclass Friday means that all the Adobe Evangelists will either stream live or have replays as we get closer to max because we're all kind of busy too. But we're all here on Fridays doing our various disciplines: photography, graphic design, Photoshop, UI, UX design, and of course, digital painting and drawing, and digital audio and video. So I think I covered everybody. And we also sprinkle in some creative challenges along the way throughout the day. You can't stay for the entire session, you can't stay for the entire day. They're always available on replay unless something technically blows up, but they should all be available for replay. So you can always come back and rewatch or catch up or pick up where you left off. So I see Deb over on YouTube. Hey, Deb. I see a bunch of folks over on Adobe Live, including Sam Peterson, our moderator, Rafus, Ozzy, Oliver, Bobby, Bruce, and they're all kind of saying, yeah, my photo library is a mess. Yeah, I need this. Great. So I see a bunch of people coming in from YouTube and Facebook, and you can watch wherever you want to watch, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, or of course Adobe Live. However, the main chat that I'll be getting a chance to look at most of the day will be the Adobe Live chat. So if you want to head over there, that's b.net/Adobe Live. You just log in with your free Adobe ID or your Adobe ID, which is always free to create, whether you're a paid member or not is the point. And you can participate in that main chat. If I see you over on YouTube, Facebook, and the other places, I'll try and recognize your question or comment or whatever, but I won't always see both screens. All right, so I see lots of people coming in from all over the world. Hello, Indiana and Iowa. I thought that said Indonesia at first. That's why I said all over the world. But I do see people coming in from the UK and Norway, and so welcome everyone from all over the globe. Winnipeg, Germany. Yeah, so I see you all. So welcome everyone, and let's go ahead and jump into today's topic, which is, Janice, I'm glad you finally made it to a class, and Jim, hello from Texas, which is how to be better organized, how to keep your ever-growing photo library organized. And I know for a lot of you, not all of you, but a lot of you, it's a mess. And this question comes up regularly. It's like probably if I had to say my top 3 questions that I get on using Lightroom or Lightroom Classic or managing photos, the questions are usually coming from someone who's already in a mess, meaning they wouldn't have a question if everything was working right. So they've gotten themselves into a problem and they don't know how to get out of it. So they've either created a mess, they've got a bunch of missing photos, they've got things that are not where they need to be. And there's usually always one root cause for the mess, and we're going to cover that today. If you can avoid the cause, then you will avoid the mess most of the time. All right, so we're going to get into those things, and without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. Switch over to my desktop, and I have these pictures here because I also have something else to say. If this is your life, if this is the kind of person you are in real life, then of course your photo library is going to be a mess too, because you're just not an organized person. That's normal. There are lots of people there are more people that are unorganized than there are that are organized. If this is your desk, then you might be that kind of person that's losing your stuff on a regular basis. Now, if you walked into this room that I'm in right now, you'd probably say, oh my God, your photos must be a mess, because the room is kind of not the neatest room in the world, but I kind of know where everything is. So you could be that messy person, but you're still organized, because if someone asked you to find something, you'd be able to find it. And that's really what it boils down to. When it comes to your photo library, whether it's a mess or not, it's about how quickly or easily can you find your photos. That's the whole point of the library. The library is there for you to be able to go back to at any given time and get to an image or get to a shoot or get to a client work anytime you need it as quickly as you can. So if you're always looking for stuff, if you never can find that photo you know you have, then the problem is organization. If you can always find the photo and stuff is still a mess to everyone else, then okay, live your best life. It doesn't matter to anybody else because it's about you finding your best photo. So what I'm saying is this element that I'm showing right here on screen exists in most of us. There are some people with OCD that would never allow this. And I have a friend that's super neat and organized, but I get calls from him too about missing photos or just organization. So anyway, no matter where you are in this picture, we're going to make sure you can at least keep your photos organized, even if your life isn't. All right, so let's get out of this. Let's hop over to Lightroom Classic. And let's talk about the number one reason why your library becomes a mess. It may not have started out as a mess, but the number one reason why things go crazy and things go missing. And it's, I've said this for years. I've said this in paid conferences. I've said this in free masterclasses. I've said this in videos I've created over the years. But it's the number one reason why you have a problem. Or you create a problem, I should say. The number one reason that people create a problem if you're a Lightroom Classic user is at some point along the way, you decide you need to do something. Usually it's because you're running out of space, but you decide you need to do something and you go outside of Lightroom Classic to do it. Meaning you go to the operating system, Mac, Windows, whatever. You go to the operating system to do the thing that you think you need to do. That's the number one issue, period, when it comes to missing photos. When it comes to something going wrong, when it comes to question marks or little exclamation points or folders missing or whatever, the number one reason is because you went outside of Lightroom to do it. Let me give you an example. This photo is called Fuquan 01-252. And it is somewhere on my hard drive. I don't know where. I'm not paying attention to where it is right now. But if I were to right click on it, I can tell it to go show it to me on my hard drive. Show it to me in the Finder or show it to me in Windows Explorer, wherever. Show it to me in the operating system. All right, it's loading that folder and here it is. So I can see it's on my file server. So this has been archived. It's in photos, it's in Terry White photos, it's in Fuquan, and there it is. So this image is actually organized the way it should be. But you've decided to go to the operating system and move it, rename it, put it in a different folder, put it on a different drive because you're running out of room. You decide to go here and do it. And that's what creates the problem. Because you don't think to do it in Lightroom because in most cases you probably didn't know you could. So you think, oh my God, I'm running out of space. I know this folder that I worked on 2 years ago, I don't need on this drive anymore. I'll just go move it to a different drive. Problem solved. Except the fact that you did it outside of Lightroom. So let's just say, for example, I'm not going to move it. Oh yeah, let's move it. Let's move this photo to the, well no, it's actually on the server. I'm not going to move it. I'm just going to rename it. I'm going to rename it MC for Masterclass. Now that I've renamed it, which it could be renamed, it could be moved, it could be deleted. Probably wouldn't delete it, but it could be something messed with in the operating system. Now when I come back, I get a different icon that basically says, you have a smart preview, but we don't know where the original is anymore because you did something. You moved it. Now, I have a smart preview, which is good. I can still work on the photo. I can still do what I need, but it will never be able to export out in its high res. It'll never be able to do anything. I can't open it in Photoshop. I can't do any of that stuff because I don't have the original. So if I were to try, let's see if this will pop up with a message here. Yeah, it's not even letting me do it. Here, let's try it this way. If I were to try, yeah, see, edit in Photoshop's grayed out. I couldn't even do the keyboard shortcut because now the photo is missing. All of this is grayed out because the photo is no longer there. Now the photo is still there. We just did something to it in the operating system. So let's go back and rename it. Take the name back off. Put it back to the way it was. come back to Lightroom Classic, that icon goes away because now it knows where the original and the Smart Preview is. And now if I were to right click on it, I can do edit in Photoshop all day long. It's not, the menu's not grayed out anymore because Lightroom Classic knows where the original is. So the minute you go messing around in the operating system, you're asking for trouble. You can mess around in the operating system all you want before you bring them into Lightroom Classic. You can copy them off your memory card, copy them off your camera, organize them, put them in a folder, put them on the drive you want them on. But once you do that import into Lightroom Classic, everything else from that point on, you should be doing in Lightroom Classic. You should no longer be messing with those photos in the operating system. Okay, so for example, now let's say I did want to rename this photo MC for Masterclass, you know, put the MC on it. Well, I went to the operating system to do it last time and that caused me problems. Well, why do it there when I can do it right here in Lightroom? I can go right to the file name right here and rename it MC. Boom, now it's been renamed MC. There it is, I can see it there at the top, and it's been renamed MC for Masterclass. And if I were to go to the operating system, it's been renamed in the operating system too. So there's no reason to do it in the operating system because if you do it in Lightroom Classic, it actually renames the original file. It doesn't, you don't have to do it in the operating system if that's what you're trying to accomplish. If I needed to move this photo to a different folder, a different drive, a different whatever, then I could pick it up, go to my folder area and move, let's say I just want to put it temporarily on my desktop. So I'm going to put it on my desktop and look what it says in the upper left corner, moving file. So it's physically moving that file from my server, which is a network drive, so it's going to take a minute. It did it. And it's moved it to the desktop. All right, done. It's still in Lightroom. I can still right click on it and say edit in Photoshop. Lightroom still knows where it is. And if I were to go back to that folder, it's gone. See, it's not there anymore. Because if I were to now go look at my desktop folder, there it is. It's on the desktop. But don't pick it up here and move it back because then you'd be causing the same problem again. So if you need to move things around, move them around in Lightroom Classic. Do not move them around in the operating system. Do not rename them in the operating system. Do not decide you need a bigger drive and then you're going to go move the whole folder in the operating system because you can do all of that in Lightroom Classic. Okay, so renaming, how much does Lightroom hold? I have so many external 10 terabyte hard drives. There's no, Karen, there's no physical limit that I'm aware of. People have millions of photos in Lightroom Classic. So when you start getting to billions, then let's have a chat. But millions should be your North Star for now. All right, so with that said, see, if you start getting away from, I need to do it in the operating system, your life will be better if you're a Lightroom Classic user. All right, I'm going to give you another example. I'm going to give you an example of, I need to move some images to a bigger drive. I ran out of space. Okay, that ever happened to you? You run out of space? All right, let's go through the whole scenario and then we'll do the move so you guys can, you'll know how to do the whole thing. All right, so I've been working so far in my main catalog and eventually I need to get that photo back to where it belongs. Anyway, let's go show, I could probably show that folder in the operating system. Oh, not that one, this one, because that one's been moved. Let's say show this, not in the operating system, I'm sorry, show it in the library. Go to folder in library, okay, there's that folder. And then I just need to take that image from the desktop and move it into that folder. Okay, I'll do that later. I'm not gonna bother you with it here. But anyway, that's how I'd get it back. I would go show the folder in Lightroom, which I just did. I just lost it a second. It should be F. There it is, Fuquan. I would then go drag that image back to this folder to move it back in Lightroom Classic. All right, anyway, so I'd have to go, here, I might as well do it. I have to go find it on the desktop. There it is. There it is. Okay, let's move it all the way. This is why I didn't want to do it here. All the way down. Then I got to scroll. Long list of folders. I could have closed some of those other folders to save me time. All right, moving all the way down to the F's. Whoa, there it is. Moving it back. Okay, that file's now safely being moved back to where it belongs, and we'll be good to go. Okay, next up, we'll let that finish. Great, it finished, and now we can go ahead and move on with our next task. All right, so I'm going to create a new catalog. I'm going to start over where you would probably start. All right, so let's start over. Now, your new catalog can be anywhere you want, and it should be on an internal drive. I said should be. It doesn't have to be, but it should be on an internal drive. The only place it can't be is a network drive. So your catalog can be on your internal drive, which is where I keep mine on my laptop. It can be in your pictures folder. It could be in a Dropbox folder. It could be anywhere you want it to be, as long as it's with you at all times. Because if you put it on an external drive, then you're going to always have to have that external drive plugged in to work in Lightroom. So that's why I say your catalog, which is not the images, it's just the catalog file, should be on a drive that's always available. So I'm going to put mine in my pictures folder, and I'm going to call this one Masterclass, what's today's date, 9/23? 9/23. I'm just giving it this weird name so we know what it is. I would not call it that, but I'll give it a weird name so we know what it is. But it would be my Lightroom catalog, Terry's Lightroom catalog, Terry White Photography Lightroom catalog, whatever you want to call it, that you would know what it is. All right, so now this is going to create an empty catalog that is then going to open up. Hopefully. Yep, here it comes. Okay, so now we have an empty catalog with no photos in it. So I'm starting from scratch. I decided to start over. This is my new catalog that's going to stay organized going forward, starting today. All right, so now how do I get my images into it? If you wanted to bring over existing images, you can say import from another catalog. You can go back to your old catalog and import. You can pick and choose which ones you want to come over, and it will leave them where they are, but it will associate them with this catalog too. They'll still be associated with the old catalog, but they would also be associated with this catalog. So that's if you were starting over and you already had an existing Lightroom catalog. If you're starting from scratch and you don't have anything yet, then the next thing you need to do is decide, where are you going to keep your photos? Are you going to keep your photos on your internal drive? You're going to keep them on several external drives. You're going to keep them on one big external drive. You're going to keep them on a network drive. I said network drive because your photos can be on a network drive. Your catalog cannot. They can be in two different places. So whatever drive your photos are going to be on, that's where you need to go and decide what structure you're going to use to be organized. Let me show you what I mean by that. So let's hop out to the operating system. This is the time we work in the operating system because we haven't brought anything in yet. You can work in the operating system all day long under these scenarios, or under this scenario. So let's go in and let's simply say that I want to go to a very specific folder where I've got some samples. All right, this folder right here called My Photos and Videos. This is my sample folder I've used for years to teach this particular part of Lightroom. This is the folder you would go make wherever you want to store your images permanently. So whatever drive has enough room that's going to give you room to grow, so forth and so on, go create a folder like this. Inside that folder, you're going to decide what you shoot. So in my case, I shoot family photos, I shoot photos of friends, I shoot landscapes, I primarily shoot portraits, I shoot travel, and I sometimes shoot things for work, like my Adobe job. Now, yours will look totally different. Yours, you may have some of these, you may have none of these, you may have all of these, you may have all of these and more. You may shoot products, so you would have a products folder. You may shoot street photography, so you'd have a street photography folder. You may, whatever it is you shoot, make a folder for it in the operating system. So this is the work we're doing up front to get organized. Now, once you create these folders, in order to bring this structure over to your new catalog or your existing catalog, you can even do it within your existing catalog. So you don't have to start from scratch. If you have an existing catalog and you want to do what I'm doing now, go make these folders. And the next thing you have to do in order to bring this structure over to Lightroom is you have to put at least one photo in each one of those folders. So in each one of these folders, I've got some subfolders. I've got family. I've got 3 different folders here. Anne is not a family member. We're going to show how to deal with that in a minute. And I got some family reunions. They got some photos in them. I've got a Anne folder there. It's got some photos in it. I got some friend photos. I've got some landscapes from different locations. So subfolders from each location. Subfolder of each year I went to that location. So you go create that structure, and in each one of those folders, you need at least one photo. It could be a JPEG, PSD, RAW file. Doesn't matter the file format, but it needs to have at least one photo in it. It could have all the photos in it, but it needs at least one. So portraits, travel, and work. Okay? So those are all my folders. That's my structure. And they all have at least one photo in them. And one is in the wrong place on purpose. Anne is not a family member. Anne should actually go in portraits. Now, if I saw that mistake up front, I'd move it now. But I'm going to show you how to do it going forward. Now, I'm also going to show you what happens when you don't put a photo in it. So let's say I make a folder in family. Let's go make a folder called Terry. I'm a family member. And now, there's obviously, I just made that folder. There's no photo in it. So keep in mind, that folder's empty. All right, let's go back. So go make your folders. Go make them whatever structure you want. Go call them whatever you want. Go make as many as you want. And if you don't remember them all now, don't worry. You'll be able to add more later. If you made folders you don't need or you need to move around, don't worry. You'll be able to do that later. But at least get your foundation done. Once you get your foundation done, the next thing you're going to do is bring this whole structure over to Lightroom as is. So that's why we created the structure first in the operating system. Now, once we bring it over to Lightroom Classic, we're not going to come back here and touch it anymore. We're going to continue it in Lightroom Classic. Any more work we need to do, any new folders we need to add, any changes we need to make, anything that needs to be moved around, will all be done in Lightroom Classic. But as much work as you want to do up front, go ahead and do that in the operating system on that big new drive, on wherever you want to put this stuff. Great. Okay, so now that we got this done, remember it's called My Photos and Videos. We're going to take that whole folder with all of its subfolders and all of its subfolders and all of its subfolders, and we're going to drag that whole thing to the Lightroom icon. And look at what it does. It knows the whole structure, and it's showing me all the photos, and it's giving me the option to add. That's the big button here. That's the big important button. We don't want to copy. They're already where they're supposed to be. We created the folders where they're supposed to be. There's no reason to copy. All we're telling Lightroom to do is, hey, go look at this folder I just made with all these images and all these subfolders and bring the whole thing into Lightroom Classic. You do this, you're all set for life. All right, so now let's go ahead and zoom out. And you could build smart previews, and you can do all the other stuff you want to do. You can add a metadata copyright and all that. But basically, you're going to take that whole structure, bring it over, make sure it's on add, and click import. And it's going to be quick, and it's enabling locations because some of these photos are geotagged. All right, that's it. It's done. It's just building smart previews now, but the import's done. And look at what happened. It brought over everything. Look over here. Let's be clear. It brought over everything I just told it to. So it brought over. Zoom in that way. Brought over the main folder, my photos and videos, family, friends, landscapes, portraits, travel, and work. But is there a Terry folder in family? No, because Terry's folder was empty. So it's not going to ever bring in an empty folder because it says, well, there's nothing in this folder. Why would I bring it in? So in this case, this is what I mean by it has to have at least one photo in it in order for it to come over as far as the structure. Now, you can go ahead and create that folder now and put it empty and put an image in it later, but it won't come over with that drag and drop if it's empty up front. Okay. Now, remember I said this and folder, this is actually a portrait shoot. You may remember this from last week's iPhone or a smartphone photography workshop or masterclass. Because this is from, I believe it's from that same shoot where we're doing these on the phone, but these were actually shot with a camera, with a Nikon camera. All right, so these should go in portraits. Now remember, I can go and say, show me this in the operating system. Let's do it here. Let's say show in the operating system, show it in the Finder. Yep, there's Anne's 16th birthday party. If I were to go up a level, it's in Anne's folder. If I were to go up a level, it's in family. And it doesn't belong in family. It belongs in portraits. So if I need to move this to portraits, I don't do it here. I'm done with the operating system. I don't move it from here to here. Not in the operating system anymore because that'll break. Hear me loud, read my lips. That will break Lightroom Classic. Once it's in Lightroom Classic, you do all your work in Lightroom Classic from that point on. You don't ever come back to the operating system to do anything. All right, so now if I need to move it, guess what? Pick it up and move it. Drag it from here to portraits. That's it. It moved the folder. It's now where it's supposed to be. And if I go back here, it's moved here too. That's why I don't have to go back to the operating system. Because if I do it in Lightroom Classic, it does it in the operating system. Because your folders are your folders. They're in Lightroom Classic, but they're really the folders on your hard drive. If you go to the operating system and do it, you will mess up every single time. So if your Lightroom's a mess, think back. When did I go do something in the operating system? That's probably how it started becoming a mess. Okay, so that got moved. Great. Now let's answer the number one reason why you went to the operating system to do something in the first place. You probably ran out of room. You probably got to a point to where your hard drive was starting to fill up and hey, Jason Levine, what's going on, man? And you decided it was time to move these images to a bigger drive because oh my God, you're running out of space, or an archive drive or a different drive, whatever. And because you decided to do that in the operating system, once again, you broke Lightroom Classic. And I shouldn't say broke, you confused it. It doesn't know where the images are anymore because you moved it. You went behind its back and you moved them and it doesn't know what you did. So here's a new external drive. It's amazing that this is a 4 terabyte SSD. Amazing the size. All right, this 4 terabyte SSD, I'm gonna take the cable, I'm gonna plug it in. Now, watch what happens in Lightroom when I plug this in. Here we go, click, it's plugged in. We'll give it a second, because it takes a drive a second to mount up. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3, nothing. You could wait all day and nothing's gonna happen in Lightroom. Because Lightroom Classic doesn't pay attention to drives you just plug in. It doesn't know why you plug that drive in. You could be doing InDesign on that drive. It doesn't know what you're doing. It doesn't care about drives that you just plug in that it doesn't know anything about that you're not using for Lightroom. So if I were to go to the operating system, let's go check. In the operating system, there it is, Extreme SSD. There's the new drive I just plugged in. And it's there, it's in the operating system sees it, but Lightroom could care less about it because it doesn't have any reason to pay any attention to it. There's nothing on it uses. So now, how do we tell Lightroom Classic, A, I want to start using that new drive I just plugged in because it's got 4 terabytes of empty space. B, I want to now move some of these images off my internal drive onto that drive or my external drive that was filling up, whatever drive it's on, onto that new drive. And I want you to do all the work so you will know where everything is and I won't ever break you again. So first, number one, we need to tell Lightroom Classic that that drive exists. How do we do that? We go to the folders panel, because the folders are where your images actually are stored. And there's a plus sign. You're going to click the plus sign and you're going to say add folder. So this is how you tell Lightroom Classic to use a new drive. You can do this as many for, you can have 10 new drives. You can do this for every drive you plug in. Once you say add folder, then it will say, well, where do you want to add the folder? So we're going to go to the new drive. There it is, Extreme SSD. And then we're going to make a new folder. We're going to call that new folder whatever you want. My photos and videos 2. My photos and videos on the Extreme. My photos and videos I ran out of space for. Whatever you want to call this new folder is up to you. I don't care. More space. More space for my photos and videos. Okay, there we go. I gave it a crazy name. All right, so now I gave it a crazy name, and there's the new folder I just created, and I'm going to say choose it. Now, guess what? Now there's a new drive under the folders panel called Extreme SSD, and if I twirl it down, it says 4 terabytes, 3.9 available. Oh my God, I got tons of space. Yay. Twirl it down. There's more space for my photos and videos, and it's empty. It's got 0 things in it because we didn't put anything in it yet. And we're not going to put anything in it from the operating system. We're going to put things in it from Lightroom Classic. And you've already learned how to do this. Remember the Fuquan image that I grabbed from my server and put on the desktop and then put it back? I did that in Lightroom Classic. You're going to do the same thing here. So if I'm done with the Family Reunion 2010, which has 6 photos in it, let's say it has 6,000 photos in it, that I don't need on this internal drive anymore because it's taking up too much space, pick it up, drag it to the other drive, and it will move it to the other drive. So if I go twirl that drive down now, there it, and twirl this down, there it is. Family Reunion, 6 photos, and if I go here, it's no longer in the original hard drive. It's now only on this drive. So it doesn't copy it, it physically moves it, just like you would in the operating system. But the best part is, I don't ever have to worry about them being missing here. Since it did it, it knows where they are. There's no empty, there's no icons, there's no exclamation points. There's no, if I need to edit this photo in Photoshop, I can, because it knows where the original is. I have the original in the Smart Preview. It knows where everything is. My world will be organized from this point on. All right, so that solves the second biggest issue that people have, and that is, number one was you weren't organized to begin with, so we gave you a structure to start with. Number 2, at some point, you're going to need to move photos. At some point, you are going to run out of space. At some point, you're going to get a new, bigger, faster drive. At some point, you're going to get a new computer. At some point, you're going to need to move stuff. I said stuff. So when you need to move it, do it in Lightroom Classic and life will be great. Okay, next one. Now let's get into why certain things are a mess and you can't find them and you can't whatever, and you didn't work outside of Lightroom. You didn't go behind Lightroom Classic's back. You're just not organized to begin with. So we gave you a structure to be organized starting out now. And if you stick to that structure going forward, life will be great. We're going to show you 2 things that will help you keep life great. We're going to fix a problem I'm looking at right now in this folder. And then we're going to fix a problem with bringing in some new images. Okay, number 1. Look at the names of these photos. TLW0275. What does that mean to me? Absolutely nothing. Will I ever be able to find that photo based on that name? Nope. Will I remember what that name is later today, let alone tomorrow? Nope. I won't care because the file name that it gives from the camera is because it has to name it something. So it names it some letters and numbers. That's because it has to name it something. That name means nothing to you. And people hang on to those names from the camera. I don't understand it. I never have. But the first thing I do is once I've eliminated all my bad photos, like I've thrown away all the ones I don't want, then I go back to the ones I'm keeping and I rename them. Now, I could rename these individually, like that's Pam and Nita in that first photo, and that's Sylvia and her husband in the second photo. I could go do that. But at a minimum, even if I'm not going to name them individually, I should at least name them something that I would look for later. And the number 3 problem with being organized is, and I wrote it down so I would remember it, most people don't think past the moment. In other words, you photograph some things, you bring them into Lightroom or Lightroom Classic, you're excited about them, and you retouch and you post on social and you do that and then you forget about it. Because you don't ever think you're coming back to look for those. So that's why if you don't fix this now, it's just going to be a problem that mounts. You're going to have TLW 10,025 and you're going to have thousands and thousands of photos with names that don't mean anything. Now, at least I set you up to where if you were looking for family reunion photos, you go to family, you click on family reunion, and whichever one they were in, you'd find them. Great. But if you don't have a structure for a folder, at least you'd have a shot at finding if the name was good. These names aren't good. So at least at a minimum, I should name these. Let's select all. So all I did was click and then shift click to select all, or Command A, Control A to select all. Okay, now we're going to go under Library and we're going to go to Rename Photos. And we're going to rename these photos and I'm going to show you something I always do. I always set my renaming to a custom setting. Custom text means I'll type in whatever name I want it to be. And then I want it to renumber them with a sequence number because they can't all be the same name. They can't all be Family Reunion 2019. They can be Family Reunion 2019 01, 02, 03. However, I use a 4-digit sequence number instead of a 1-digit or 2-digit or 3-digit. Why 4 digits? Because photo number 1 will actually be 0001. Why is that important? Because if I'm ever doing a search and I'm searching for number 10, that would bring up 10, it'll bring up 100, it'll bring up 1000, it'll bring up anything with a 1 and a 0 next to it. This way, if I'm looking for number 10, it's 0010. There is only one 0010. And why 4 digits? Why not 3? Why not 5? Why not 6? Because I'm usually never shooting more than 9,999 photos for any one thing I'm doing. So that's a safety. 4 is enough. All right, so now that I got my renaming sequence together, I'm going to go ahead and give it the custom name. Family. And it, they don't have to be, DOS names from 30, 40 years ago. Where you can have a nice long name to it if you want. But I actually do recommend not putting spaces in. Here's why. If you're ever going to put these images up on the web, those spaces can cause issues. If you're going to do a web gallery for someone to go pick images, the spaces can cause issues. So I tend not to do spaces in file names, but you could. All right, so now that'll be Family Reunion 2010 0001, so forth and so on. Click OK. They're all renamed. And they're not just renamed in Lightroom. Once again, if I were to go back and look at the Finder, look at the operating system, they're renamed in the operating system too, on whatever drive they're on. All right, so now, the next problem is when I'm looking for photos, looking for them in folders is a drag. Because, especially if your folders could be on different drives. Some of these folders are on the internal drive. One of these folders is on an external drive. One of these folders might be on a drive I don't even have plugged in right now. They could be all over the place. So this is why we do collections. Because if I do a collection, then I will always have that collection no matter where the images are physically located. No matter what drive they're on, no matter what drive's connected, no matter what, I will always have access to those images. So I could go make a collection right now, create a collection called Favorite Family Photos. All right, and go ahead and include the one that I already selected. I do like that photo. Let's create it. All right, so now that photo's in it. Now that was from the 2010 folder, which is on the external drive. I like this one, I like that one, and I like this one. Okay, so now let's drag those in too. Great, so now those are in there. Now let's go back to the original folder from a different year. I like this one, and I like this one, and I like this one. Let's drag those in. So a collection can have photos from different folders, which is the main purpose of a collection. They can be from all over the map. They don't even have to be family reunion photos. They could be from the portraits too. They could be from travel. They could be from wherever. But this one collection will always have my favorites in it, and I never have to worry about what folder are they in. And I'm also not moving anything. When I put them in a collection, they're still in the folders where they belong. They're still in the operating system in the original locations. I've not moved a thing. But I've decided that I'll be able to find these photos quicker because they're in a collection called My Favorite Family Photos. If I go there, it will always be my favorites. It'll always be the ones I like, because no matter what year they were taken, no matter what event they were taken from, they will always be my favorites in this spot. That's why we do collections. Okay, so what's a fast way to make a collection? Let's say I want to make a collection of all of these and photos. Here's a shortcut. Instead of me clicking create new collection and then going back to the folder and taking those 6 photos or 4 photos and putting them in there, guess what? You can literally drag a folder down to the collections area. Yep, there we go. I didn't want to put it in that collection set though. Hang on. There we go. You can literally drag a folder down to the collections area and it will instantly make a collection of that folder. So these are in a collection now. They're not in a folder. I mean, they're in a folder, but this is a collection of that folder. And if I decide, hey, I don't like this one, I don't like the smirk, I can delete it from that collection. It's not removing it from the folder. The folder still has 4 and photos. The collection only has 3, the 3 I like best. The folder has all 4 originals, no matter what. The collection only has the ones I like. So then maybe I make a best portraits folder. I'm sorry, collection. Got to use the right term. A best portraits collection. Create collection. Best portraits. All right, yep, include that one. There we go. And guess what? That's got that one in it. So if I go to the Alina one and I like this one, drag that one in. I go to the Jennifer one. I like this one, drag that one in. I go to the Kiana one. I really like this emotional one. And this one too. Take both of those, put those in. So now my best portraits has my best portraits no matter where they came from. No matter what year they were shot, no matter what folder they're in, no matter what drive they're on, it doesn't matter because it's a collection that has my best in it. I can organize them any way I want. I can present them. I can put them in a book, put them in a slideshow, in whatever order that makes sense, because it doesn't matter where they originally came from, when they were shot, so forth and so on. So this is why you want to use collections. Now in Lightroom cloud version, they're called albums. Albums and collections are the same thing. So I created an album today called Organization or Messy or something. I forgot what I call this. Anyway, I think I put it under Photography Masterclass. This is what I mean by it doesn't matter what you were thinking in the moment, because you will forget it at some point. But yeah, somewhere in here I put a organization or messy thing here, just so I'd be able to find this. But anyway, and I'm failing now because I don't remember where I put that album. Or maybe I didn't even make an album for them yet. Hold on. Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't. There it is. Get organized. All right. I thought I did. So get organized has one of them. It doesn't have the other one. And I can now move this to demo, to Photography Masterclass, because that's where it belongs. And I can go back to the recently added, the one that didn't get in there. And I can go find it. And that was called Get Organized. These are stock shots anyway. They're not mine. And I can drag that one in. And now that album has those 2 photos. All right, the next thing that people always ask, well, if you edit a photo, is it editing it in the folder? The photo is in the folder. The collection just points to it. If you edit it, you're editing it everywhere. So if I go in and I were to right-click on this photo and I were to say, I don't want to rotate it. Let's do it this way. Photo, flip horizontal. So now her arm is going the other way. If I were to now go back to the folder that was from, Kiana, her arm's going the other way. Because the photo is the photo. It doesn't matter where you edit it. You're editing the photo. So the photo only exists one place in the folder, even though you've got it in as many collections as you want. So the and photo, for example, if I were to go into the develop module and I were to, I don't know, do an auto tone on it. Okay, there we go. Her skin's a little warmer now, and I were to go back, and guess what? It's in best portraits. It's there. If I were to go to and folder, it's there. It's everywhere it exists. It's been edited because there's only one and photo. And whatever this one is, 151. There's only one and 151. No matter how many collections you put it in, it's the same photo. Now, to have multiple choices for people that want to say, hey, I want to show my client different edits. There are different ways to do that. There are snapshots, there's virtual copies, there's ways to do that in both Lightrooms. So for example, in Lightroom Classic, if I wanted to go back now and say, hey, I don't want to make that one so warm, let's reset it. Great. And I now say, but I do want to show a client a different version of this. I can go back to the and collection. I could then say library, is it library or photo? I can never remember because I always do it from the keyboard. Create virtual copy, there it is. And now that makes a second icon with that little dog ear, which doesn't take up any extra space, and it is not taking up any space on the hard drive. So there is still only one and 151 in the folder on the hard drive in the operating system. This virtual copy only exists in Lightroom Classic. So now if I were to go into develop and now I were to do auto, and I would say, well, that's a little too warm. Let's cool it off a little bit. There we go. I still have both versions, and I could go in and I could also say, well, you know, we need her to face the other way. So let's go to photo and let's go flip horizontal. She needs to face the other way. Great. And if I were to now export both of those as JPEGs or whatever, I would get 2 photos, one with the edits, one with the original. So that's how you can also stay organized by using virtual copies in a collection for having different versions of the photo. Don't do them in the folders. It's creating headache that you don't need. Do it in the collections because you want your folders to stay clean. As a matter of fact, it's very rarely that you would ever need to go back to a folder. Once you've renamed the images and once the images are located where they need to be and you've moved them to the drive they need to be on, there's no reason to ever go back to the folders. You're going to do everything else in collections. All right. And if I do rename it here, it is renaming it in the folder, just to be clear. It's like collections are just, they're like playlists for your music. So your songs are still in the album, still in the folders where they belong, but your playlist can contain as many of those songs as many times as you want on different playlists. Okay, next up. We got a few minutes left. Let's see, I wanted to look at my note. Okay, I knew it was something else. One more way that people will use to find images, hey Deb, is that I've given you the way I organize. I organize in folders and collections. So I can pretty quickly go back and find an image I want. However, I may not remember the person's name. Like, her name's really not Anne, but I do know her name. But I may not remember Anne, 5 years from now. But I might remember blonde, blue eyes. Like, I know I have a blonde, blue-eyed, young model photograph that I did at some point. So I wonder how can I find that photo. I don't remember her name, don't remember where it is. It's in portraits, but I have hundreds of portraits folders. I don't want to have to click through one by one finding them. The next way we find things is via keywords. I don't remember the name, therefore I don't remember which portrait folder it's in, therefore I don't remember where it is. So the next best thing is keywords. So I'll be honest, I'm not a big keyword person. I don't do keywording on a regular basis, but I do appreciate what keywords are for. All right, so you have keyword lists, and you when you click on an image, like this one's already got some keywords in it, none of which are the ones that I need. But let's go ahead and do blonde. Great. Let's do blue eyes. Great. And let's go to a different image just for the sake of argument. Let's go to Jennifer. Jennifer's also blonde. Great. Okay. So now if I completely forgot that Jennifer was blonde, by the way. I was going to go pick a brunette just for the sake of example, but I did have another blonde. Great. So I forgot already about Jennifer. So now if I were to say, hey, I'm looking for blonde, blue-eyed people for a shoot or for a campaign I'm doing, whatever, then I could just go and say, show me all photos. Great. And then go do text for my metadata search and do blonde. And those are all the images that were keyworded. I didn't have to remember the person. I didn't have to remember when I took it. I didn't have to remember where I took it. I didn't have to remember what folder it's in. I didn't have to remember anything because the keywords let me find things that I may look for later that aren't relevant to me, like don't matter to me today. Like today, I know that's Jennifer. Today, I know that's Ann. But a year from now, I may not. 5 years from now, I probably won't. 10 years from now, who knows? So this way with keywords, I can always find a category of what I'm looking for quickly if I take the time to do it. Now, when I first started using Lightroom Classic, before I knew about folders and collections and organizing that way, I was keywording the crap out of everything. And keywording is kind of one of those taxes you pay up front because it's the time it takes to do it, hoping you're going to get a refund on it later. Hoping one day you're going to search for that keyword. So that's why I don't do it too much today, because if I'm really looking for a blonde, blue-eyed person, and yeah, I might have portraits with hundreds of folders in it, once I start seeing the names in that portraits collections, I can probably figure out which person it is. And that's taking me a little more time to find up front because I got to scroll the folders versus the time it takes me to keyword every single photo. See so it's like, where do you want to spend your time? And I'll be honest, I used to keyword religiously and I don't anymore because I just don't. I just don't anymore. Now, let me also show you another reason I don't. Because if we were to go over to the cloud version, which I'm using a lot more now these days, I'm still a Lightroom Classic primarily. But if I were to go in and say, show me all photos, and show me waterfalls. I've not keyworded any of my photos waterfalls. But because these images are in the cloud, it will go and find anything it knows that looks like a waterfall. So if I were to find blonde, if I were to find blue eyes, it would search and find blonde and blue-eyed people, even though those photos were never keyworded. So if you are syncing your images to the cloud, you're going to have Adobe Sensei, our artificial intelligence engine, to help you find things that you've never keyworded, that aren't in a specific album, because there's no such thing as folders here. Well, folders are organization for albums. But anyway, your images are uploaded to the cloud, so you're not storing things locally. You're not worried about what drive something's on. You're not working behind Lightroom Cloud's back, because once you import them, they're uploaded to the cloud. There is no local structure to mess with. Anyway, this is the future. This is where it's going. So I don't keyword because of this. So Sean's asking, keywords do sync from Lightroom Classic to Lightroom now? No, they don't. So that's another reason why we always tell people pick one, use Lightroom Classic or Lightroom Cloud, because that's one of the things that doesn't sync back and forth. The structure of keywords is different in Lightroom Classic than it is in Lightroom, and I don't know that they will ever sync. They will ever be the same because it's no one's goal to make that happen. So anyway, you can keyword in Lightroom Cloud too. So if you're looking for a very specific thing, I'm looking for a Ford Fiesta. Well, the AI may not be able to find that, but if you keyword it, it would. So you could find Ford Fiesta because you keyworded it. All right, anyway, and I just made that up. I don't have a Ford Fiesta, just first thing came to mind. Anyway, so you can always keyword, but the AI can find things that it knows what thing, because it knows what a waterfall looks like. Now, here's the thing. It may find 1,000 waterfall pictures and 2 pictures of birds. Who cares? It got 2 pictures wrong. As long as it found the ones I'm looking for, I don't care what else it finds or thinks it found. So that's the other thing to remember, is that AI is not perfect and may never be. But as long as it found the waterfall I'm looking for, I don't care if it found 10 photos that weren't for waterfalls. So people get caught up on, it found these photos and these aren't waterfalls. Who cares? Did it find what you were looking for? Great. Move on. Okay, so with that said, we are out of time. Hopefully I've helped you clarify your mess. Hopefully I've given you ways to fix your existing catalog. I've given you ways to move to a new catalog. I've given you ways to never have these problems again by staying out of the operating system once you bring those images into Lightroom Classic. Cheers, everyone. Stay tuned for the Daily Creative Challenge. It's been a pleasure. We'll catch you next week. Bye, everybody. Have a great weekend.